Cool. So logo is really important. The show name, I guess that's your guys' homework. For those of you who don't have a show, Lori, maybe do some muscle checking on the Wealthy Lala show, the Wealthy Lala podcast, Wealthy Lala with Lori. Just play with different show names, and then if you want, like, write down all of them and then look on the page and just see if one just kind of jumps out at you and says, pick me. It can be that, seriously guys, it can be that easy. My daughter named my show. She goes, Mom, you're changing all the time. Just call it your name and you can talk about anything you want. And that's how that got built. Although it still kind of freaks me out that it's my name. So naming it, get to know your audience. Lori, I think she gets her audience super clearly. Melanie, tell me a little bit more about your audience.
I talk to like in my line of work, and this is kind of where I'm caught. I talk to different levels of people, if you know what I mean. I have absolute beginners that know absolutely nothing, and kind of they're looking for information, to peers, to people that work with me, and then I speak to, we'd say, management or whatever, and there would be a lot of those. If you get what I'm saying, for me, I do an awful lot of social media marketing and stuff, and that's not what I want to talk about. So I don't want to be sharing the latest Instagram tips or whatever, if you get what I mean. So I definitely know that's not the way I would like to take what I'm talking about.
So speaking of, let's say there's someone comes up and they're just so thankful that you made your show.
Mm-hmm.
And it really gave them some things they didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sort of beginner to expert, what would make you the happiest? Who's saying thank you to you would make you feel the best?
Well, the one thing that pops to mind is a conversation I had with somebody in the summer. I was out at a birthday party and I just got talking to someone, and what he was a teacher, and he he was going to find himself and all this kind of stuff, and he came home, and what he actually teaches people that to go to university, but they're older people. So they're people that do like he had an 80-year-old student or whatever. And what he said to me was, he goes, I'd love for you to come in and talk to people because you have a great story to keep people going for what they're looking to create, because it's a little out of the box. Technically, if you're in school, you're under 25, you know what I mean? So people that literally, like, take that 80-year-old, for example, to take that chance on themselves to commit to something completely different, and then, actually look to go to university. So people that are actually kind of looking to create something out of the ordinary, kind of against.
So is your audience people at a crossroad?
Yeah. Yeah, because I would have found that with myself, and it's the one thing I talk about quite well, is people are looking to make a change. But like, it's not like they don't have to be like destitute and like have nothing going for them. Everyone has that pops up for them, and we, like you were saying earlier, we all have these little roadblocks, and it doesn't matter how successful you are. We all have these little dark parts that pop up every now and then, and that's what I like when I speak to people that are even, we'd say, more senior than I am. I see things that they don't, and that's where our conversations go.
What I got shown for your audience, so our audience is always a spectrum.
Okay.
So some people are going to be like this, and some people are going to be like this, and some people are going to be like this. There's the core and then the outliers.
Yeah.
So I got that the core would probably be those middle, and that there'd be some beginners and some experts. But I got that core would be people in the middle, which means the core is not the beginners. I didn't get that as the core, because I got that you want to be higher level than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yet it will still appeal to beginners. And then experts, when they happen upon it, it'll be the right show that they listen to for whatever they needed. Because there's always that. We get what we require when we need it, right? We go searching for it and we find it, and then we're like, that was what I needed today. So I definitely got that you can have all three in your audience, so that it's not an or universe. Because I think people do make the mistake of saying, I think one of the things people do in trying to make this do it right is they get so right or wrong about every answer that they end up really hitting nothing.
Yeah.
like they've made something that gets devoid of their chi because they've tried so hard to make it right. And so we want to really let go of that, because the more, honestly, I've been told this so often, that the hit songs have a lot of mistakes in them. Like someone was off key for part of it, or, you know, it's like they were laughing at the open, or, you know, there's like these, just whatever it was about that song, that cut, that chi, that thing that made it's almost never the perfect one. It almost always has some imperfection in it. Like with my show, it definitely has imperfection. And people just have come to know that that's okay with my show, you know? So that's a pretty good amount of work that you did today on your show. So Melanie, if you can just play with some names over the next week.
Yeah.
It may or may not be ready to be named right away. So just start playing with names. Just start letting names like pop up in your dreams. Okay?
Yeah.
Bree, actually, I got that you could also work a little bit more on the audience. So tell me a little bit about your listeners.
Okay. Well, I'm kind of middle. I tend to attract people who are open, they're looking for things. I also, though, tend to attract a lot of starseed type people and heavy duty scientists who say this doesn't work. But for some reason it does, and they manage to make it work. And I get these people like scientists at JPL who say, okay, this stuff doesn't work, but all I know is for the 30 minutes that I'm with you, it all works and I feel better. So I'm going with that. So they suspend their belief. So
I got a pretty big hit on starseeds.
Yeah.
I really got that you could make a home away from home for people from other planets.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. That's a total gift. And think of how people from other planets, you know, myself included, of course, for anyone who's listening and thinks I'm normal. I'm definitely a starseed. I had that done one time, and she said I was speaking, which is from the planet Virgo or something. It's really interesting. So if I've traveled off into a land that you're lost in, what we're doing is we're really looking at, when we're looking at our audience, it's more of like, who do we invite to the stadium? It doesn't mean they're not going to bring their spouses. You know, it doesn't mean they're not going to come to the party with a friend. So when we say we're having an audience, that's not everyone who listens to the show. Some people are just going to be clicking. You know how you're just clicking, and then you use some words and it brings that person in, and bam, they come to your show and they're just like, wow, that was a good show. And then what they do is they Netflix binge backwards. So once they find you, they listen to all the back shows. And Netflix has really trained people, and we really thank Netflix. Because once they like the show, they just start listening to all the episodes. And it's really interesting. Some people go to the back and then go forward, and some people go from the forward and go backwards. You never know what order they're going to listen to your show in. And again, this comes to like having the shows have some degree of like the sound levels being the same, some degree of the length of the show being the same. I always do this in my mind's eye when I'm creating my shows, and I picture people binge listening. I always picture people binge listening, because then we want each show to lead to the next show in some fashion, where it doesn't mean you can't cook on one show and do, you know, ceramics on another show if you're doing a creation show like Lori's doing. It doesn't mean you can't, but have it kind of start with a similar start, and have it kind of like feel a similar way, and look at that so that it's like a friend. But then isn't it cool when your friend has new stuff they're showing you, right? But it's still kind of, there's something familiar about that person that you're not needing to like meet them fresh every single time. It'd be so complicated and hard. It'd be so much energy. So you can't be, it's not that you can't be, but the more you allow your own chi in, that's sort of the glue that will get people and they'll keep binge listening. Okay. Also, what just showed up for me in that space is being generous of yourself. So this is a really interesting topic. Honestly, I've never shared this, but I have been thinking about it lately. When someone's generous with you, when they give you their time, there's just something so magic about that. Because our culture's gotten to be where we're not very generous with our time with people. We're kind of covetous of ourselves. It doesn't mean it's wrong, but think about when someone's generous with you, what it feels like. It's so different. It's so beautiful. You can be transformed in that generosity of spirit. Mm-hmm. And it's really something amazing. And I got that when you can be generous with you, it means you're showing up as you. You're giving yourself the space on the show. And this doesn't mean you can't interview people. I interview people on my show. But as you're being generous of spirit, there's something about that. And Lori asked us in the Zoom, how does my podcast stand out from the crowd? Someone who's generous with themselves, they're going to kind of show you what makes them tick. And I don't really know why that came into my head, but if that helps maybe someone.
Yeah, it does. And it's funny because today it's $10 Tuesday, and I love buying rocks and stones and cabochons. And this one group has a $10 Tuesday where a bunch of these sellers, they sell everything for $10, which is a really good deal. And some of these are $100 cats. And so I would buy, and it was very interesting how when I was in the generosity, it showed me where I still buy into greed and how sometimes, oh, you're taking too much and all this kind of stuff. So it really got a lot of healing for me. And I spoke to some of the dealers. I said, I hope I don't offend you by taking all these. I said, oh, heck no, please take them. So it was kind of fun. So that maybe that's why, because, the greed is really tied into the generosity. And I didn't get that until I started playing on this group. So.
Yeah. And sometimes, if your parents weren't very generous with their time with you, you just haven't been raised in a space of generosity. Mm-hmm. Like you're just not used to that. Or even if your grandparents weren't very generous of themselves with you, if they hoarded their information and didn't share their stuff and didn't know how to talk to you. And this is very common in our culture, I'm thinking about kids today, like they grow up with their phone, like, how much generosity can be given and taken. So one of the things I notice in shows that do really well is that the person hosting it will they'll let their true colors shine. They'll let their true colors come out and be seen. It's very vulnerable, isn't it? It's so vulnerable. Yeah. So we covered logo pretty well. There's also an opportunity, guys. You can have a tagline. So you can have a tagline in your show. So mine is 8 minutes of inspiration for entrepreneurs and light workers. So it kind of falls off your mouth easy. And then let's see, next week we're going to talk about monetization and having the show make you money. And some of the ways that it does and some of the ways it doesn't, and what it does have to do, what it doesn't have to do. And so be in the space this week of asking the show about the money question, like without either, of course it has to make me money, or it absolutely does not have to make me money. Either of those are the spectrum of not really asking the show, like what would be fun. So just start asking some questions about that. We're not going to assume that it needs to make money or doesn't need to make money. And when I say money, I'm also referring to its life force and its energy and what it gives to you. So next week, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And we'll answer any questions. And anything else? I think we're just about at the hour, and I want to honor you guys' time. But if we have questions, you can go ahead and ask another question if anything shows up for you guys. It must be pretty late there, Melanie.
No, I'm good at 7 p.m., but I
Okay.
think I got a really good stuff to run with for this hour for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
And
Laurie?
I might not be on next week, so I might just email you what I'm thinking, just so I don't slow the whole week's down.
Okay, great. Laurie, any questions or something I want to think about for next week to be prepared?
Not what I can think of. My head's already busy making a tagline.
Yeah, and also start thinking about a web presence for your shows, guys. All the podcast providers give this to you free, so you don't have to think about money unless you want to make a special website or time. But every single one gives it to you free, so you want to start thinking about that. Just start wrapping your arms around it, having a nice website, whether that be the one that they give you on Blueberry, Podbean, or whatever one you choose as your broadcast. And Bree, any other questions for you as we depart till next week?
No.
Okay, awesome. You guys are so cool. And I look forward to next week. I look forward to this. I'm going to put this on a web page with the 3 videos and also 3 audios because we recorded in 3 parts. So this will have 3 videos and 3 audios this 1 hour. And then next week we'll come back, and if you just have a burning question throughout the week, feel free to just pop it my way. Don't worry about it. You can send me questions. It's okay. Thanks, guys. Bye.